unless I
You
ask
have to fill me in afterwards. Welcome everyone to this Planning Commission. The date is Monday, July 23rd. Will everyone please rise for a Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. You may be seated. The first item for tonight's agenda is the actual approval of the agenda for tonight. Does anyone need to make any alterations? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Very good. Moving on, we'll be approving for the minutes of the July 9th, 2012 meeting. Does anyone need to make any changes on that? Not seeing any. With that, I'll entertain a motion as well.
Move for approval of the minutes.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Does anybody need to abstain? I am one that needs to abstain.
I abstain.
I am 3.
Okay. Julie, did you get all those? All right. Very good. The next item would be for the public hearings for tonight. The first one is the Woods at Bryant Lake. The location of the project, this is actually a continued item. The location of the project is 7550 Marketplace Drive. The request is for a planned unit development concept review on 6.95 acres, a planned unit development district review with waivers on 6.95 acres, a zoning district change from rural to R1-22 on 6.95 acres, and a preliminary plat on 6.95 acres into 5 lots. Mr. Franz, I'm understanding through reading the packet that they want to continue.
Yes, they're still working on the most cost-effective, virtually maintenance-free sanitary sewer for the city, and they need more time to figure that out. So you simply need to pass a motion to continue the item to the August 13th meeting. There's no residents that are here for that project because we sent out notice to them not to come because it was going to be a continuance.
Okay. I also see a little side note here. The applicant is requesting continuance and extension of the 120 review period, 120-day review period.
Yes.
Is there anything else that needs to be added to that, or just flat a continuance to the next meeting?
Just the continuance.
Okay. With that being said, no one has any questions. I'll entertain a motion for that.
Mr. Chairman, move to recommend continuance to the August 13th, 2012 meeting.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Moving on, the next item would be variance number 2012-03. The location of the project is 17179 Pardons Drive. The request is to permit a shoreline setback for an in-ground pool 55 feet from the ordinary high water level of Duck Lake. The city code requires a 100 feet setback from the ordinary high water. With that being said, will the proponent of the project please come forward and tell us a little bit about your project? Please also state your name and spell your last name and your address for city record, please.
Sure, you bet. Jared Plouffe, and J-E-R-R-A-D. Last name is P-L-O-O-F. And then we're at 17179 Paddens Drive.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks for your time. We just brought some pictures here of the site so you can kind of see get a better feel for what the project does look like. Well, basically, we're applying for the variance to use our backyard for a 20 by 40 in-ground pool. We've been at this property since 2001 and purposely sought that house and the lot for the possibility of putting a pool in it one day, and that day has come. And then we have since learned of this 100-foot setback and realized that setback comes right to the corner of our house. And now we're finding that it's really kind of due to the angle. It does kind of come back at an angle which cuts into the property pretty significantly from our neighbors and other properties on the lake. If that wasn't the case, we likely wouldn't have an issue and probably would be right within the setback. The house itself is actually about 150, 175 feet from the water itself. So again, kind of never thought it would be an issue until we went in and tried to get the permit. Our understanding of the ordinary high water line is where the vegetation changes from aquatic to an above water type vegetation. And in some of these pictures, I think you'll see that there's a clear indication of where that does occur. We did have Russ Hansen with All About Pools out to the site, and he's actually our pool contractor and took many of these elevations so you can kind of get a better feel for what we're looking at from a measurement. The first line is the 100-foot line from the trees. So again, this first line here in this first page, you can kind of see where that vegetation changes to more of a brushy area, and that line then extends through the 100 feet. The next slide shows you where there, again, are those mature trees. In fact, there's a birch tree that's outlined there. It's estimated to be about 30 years old, and there is another mature tree off to the side, right off Duck Lake Road. And again, kind of that dotted line is what our understanding of what an ordinary high water line would be. If that was the case, well, and here you can see from where the actual water is to that point of our yard is 160 feet. The next slide shows actually what the proposed pool, where it would be located on the property. The corner of the pool is actually 104 feet from that mentioned birch tree. So again, thinking that birch tree, obviously a birch tree is likely not going to grow in an ordinary, what would be underwater. So we're thinking we're okay with that measurement. And then the few slides here, we do have a couple. There's a neighbor 4 houses down that appears to have a pool about 85 feet from the water line, just in a cul-de-sac right next to us. And the next slide will show you exactly what the pool would look like here in relation to our neighbor's house, which from this angle you can kind of see that our pool is actually tucked back a little further actually from their house even. But again, a lot of this has to do with how our ordinary hot water line is drawn in relation to our property. So essentially the last slide here is just kind of what would be our only option if we were taking this ordinary high water line to be accurate is on the side of our house, which we do have some elevation and there's really just not enough room there for a pool. So in closing, we're pursuing the variance as we feel like the existing ordinary high water line is roughly 50 to 80 feet, maybe closer to the house than what it actually should be. We just feel like there's just really no other place in our yard for a pool. Even with the pool, the where it's sitting, with what we have proposed, it's 120 feet from any water. And again, I think we mentioned in our initial notes too that a pool, is kind of a rainwater collection basin anyway. So hoping, it's not like we're putting a permanent structure where water is going to be running off. And that's kind of what we have. So appreciate your time. And is there any questions we might be able to answer?
We'll hear from city staff, and then if we have any questions, we'll follow up with you.
Okay.
Okay?
Good. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Mr. Franzen, you want to take us through the staff report, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. This variance meets the 3-part test for reasonable use, unique circumstances, and neighborhood character. And Exhibit A, which is attached to the final order, indicates the findings and conclusions that are necessary as part of your action here tonight. And so our recommendation is for you to approve final order 2012-03.
Okay. Thank you very much. Commissioners, are there any questions? I know I have a few, but I wanted to ask you first. Does anybody have any questions?
I have a question.
Okay. Go ahead.
Mr. Franzen, was the ordinary high water level line already in place when the resident purchased the home?
The ordinary high water level is set by the watershed district, and that would have been identified on the plan. But if you're looking at a lot, you can't really tell where the ordinary high is because it's an elevation. So if you look at where the water level is and you see the vegetation, you're making the assumption that the high water level is at the point where it's clearly water and not vegetation.
Okay. I do see, I guess I had a question for the project proponent. Is the greater outline around the pool, is that a like a paver patio or some kind of impervious surface that will be installed as well?
Skin concrete.
Okay. I guess my only request of if we approve this then is that some kind of rain garden would be installed to help mitigate the effects of the additional runoff from the impervious surface, since it is close within the high water level.
Did you understand that at all? Kate, did you want to explain? You want to explain just a little bit more?
So, because there's a lot of impervious surface being installed, my guess is probably about 80 by 40 feet from your drawing, about, maybe between 350, 400 square feet. That can add a lot of additional water, and flow rate coming down your hill, and it could, cause erosion and increase the rate of water that's heading towards the lake. And by installing a rain garden, you can slow that down and keep that additional water from increasing the quantity of pollutants and just rate and quantity of water that reaches the lake, since it is inside that area of where the water can tend to get higher more frequently.
Could I make a comment on this item? Russ Hanson,
Sure, please come forward. Will you please state your name and spell your last name for city record as well?
Yeah, my name's Russ Hanson. I'm with All About Pools.
Can you spell your last name, Mr. Hanson?
Yeah, Hanson.
Thank you.
With the rain garden in place, we understand, I've done quite a few rain gardens. This is one of those situations where I don't think it's necessary, but I'm not the one making that determination. In this case, the basin of the pool is going to be as much as the concrete around it. The base, it is going to be an automatic pool cover, which is going to be essentially a catch basin that will be gauged by an automatic pump that will take the water off of the cover at a very, very slow rate, probably 1/4 of what you would normally think of when you turn on a hose. And this water can be directed any which way that we wanted to do that. If this is something that needs to be done with the rain garden, can you make recommendations tonight as to how much you would like to see and possibly where you might? The only place that I can think of that would work would be just between the pool and the lake. There's still flat area there to take in a rain garden. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, do you have a question?
Yeah, my question is probably for Mr. Hanson also, or for the city staff, and I'm just curious, where it's this close to the lake and a pretty high water table, if there are concerns about the stability of the pool because of a rising water table and how that may impact the stability of the pool.
Mr. Hanson, please come forward to the microphone. Thank you.
I believe my numbers are correct. The actual area where the pool is about 15, let's see, it's over 8 feet higher than the water itself, the lake. So if that gives you any clue. And then you've got a flat, if you look at the picture, you've got a flat piece of property that is nearly perfectly flat going to the hedges, which is going to be where the pool is going to be located. And then it drops off at a slope down to the lake from there. And the difference in the height of where the proposed pool is and where the lake is over 8 feet at this point. So it's not something that we're going to be really close to the lake.
Okay, because when I look at this drawing, it looks like the numbers are quite different than that.
I think 1,001 is positive. Is that the correct proposed pool elevation? And the actual water level at the lake is, I want to say 12.
I see like a 923 elevation at the back of the house, and then I see a top of ice elevation at 912.
Yeah, okay, so the 912 and the actual pool.
So that'd be about 11 feet, so something less than 11 feet.
Yeah. Okay, I think the proposed pool elevation should be at about...
Looks like 904. And I can't quite read what it says.
Yeah,
looks like 904, but it can't be that low.
You have a second, Doug? I have a couple up another.
I think that's 904 square feet.
Okay, yep.
921.6.
That's the elevation of the pool deck?
Proposed pool elevation, 921.6.
Okay.
So that place is at...
That's 9 feet different from the top of ice elevation then?
Right, exactly.
Just wondering if that's a concern for anybody.
That's close.
The 9 feet? Oh, you're talking about the depth of the pool?
The pool is then 8 feet deep or something, and
Yep.
so let's say the water level of the lake comes up a couple of feet. Now the water level at the pool is probably going to be, the groundwater level is probably going to be higher than the bottom of the pool.
Yeah.
And how do you design the pool to deal with that?
It'll never feed back into there. This is a clay situation, for one thing. Our biggest concern is where the footings are in the pool, which is 3'6" down from the top. Okay. And then the bottom is going to be a basin of water with, which is called vermiculite sides, which is a poured concrete insulation base that goes against that. And we'll put in, I install a lot of pools in water tables. As long as I'm below the footings, we're okay. It just, once you get into the footings, you don't want your footings wet.
Right.
And the pools are fine because you've got the basin of water in place. You're never going to be taking that water out.
Right.
And then we put sump lines in underneath that if we ever have to do that. But this, in my 35 years of doing this is kind of a no-brainer for me, and I understand that you don't have the experience that I do on the pool end of the business, but this is way out of so far out of the ground that it's not going to be a problem in our mind.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Travis, go ahead.
Yeah, I've got a question for staff. I can't remember how long ago or what it is, but I thought there was a recent court statement or court order brought down for the DNR and recreational development classification lakes for a 75-foot. Are we a little more strict on our 100-foot OHW setback, and the 75-foot was the court order? So I can't remember. It jogged my memory.
The DNR setback is 75 feet. City chose to have it at 100 feet for single family.
Has there been any conversation in staff or planning and council level to re-look that and bring up to DNR standards? Make it a little more conducive for people wanting to do various things with their backyards?
I guess if you looked at something different, you might keep the main structure at 100 feet, but you might look at accessory structures having a different setback because of their size. I mean, there's a difference between having a house at 50 feet from the lake than it is for an in-ground pool, or someone having a patio, or someone having a deck.
Yeah, I guess I would consider this more of an accessory structure. And no, I remember that going through about 3 years or something like that ago, so I have no problems with this.
Okay. Mr. Franson, a couple questions. When the police would have bought this land, would the OHWL line setback been on that plot?
It's shown on the survey.
So it would have been there.
So it has the shoreline on here. It
Right.
has the ordinary high. It also has the drainage easement, which covers the conservation easement.
So when the land was purchased, all the necessary information was there.
Well, this is the survey that was on record at the time for the building permit.
Right.
I don't know what the survey would have shown when they purchased the property.
Okay.
The boundary survey may or may not have had that information
Okay.
on that at that point.
Okay. Thank you. On the next question, there's been some conversation back and forth about the photos and the footage or the foliage and where it lines up and the 100 feet versus 75 feet and all that. Can you give us what is the city's response to? Well, on the drawings it says you can see the foliage as being this, but according to records it's this. Is there any? Where should we go with that? Does that make sense? What I'm asking?
We have to go with the elevation that's set from the watershed district.
Okay.
And so they set the elevations for all the lakes that are in town.
Okay.
They set the elevation for parts on the creeks that we have in the community and the Minnesota River. And there's 3 different watershed districts that are involved.
So the photos with the changing foliage are pretty much irrelevant. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
In terms of the application of the ordinance, because it's from the ordinary high water mark.
Right. Okay. My last question here in your notes, actually I've got 2 more, I'm sorry. My last question here in 2003, so variance number 2003-03, it looks like we denied a pool for 66.5 from the ordinary high water line. Do you recollect any of that conversation and why we denied that project?
That It could have been relative to the size of the pool. It could have been the removal of vegetation between the pool and the lake, and the view of the pool from the lake. All this does is it shows that there's been a number of different variances on different bodies of water. Some have been approved and some have not been approved. And it's all based upon the circumstances of the neighborhood. When those were denied, it was under a different set of rules.
Right.
And the statute changed to use this different sort of look at it. And so if that had been applied to those, it may have met the test, may not have met the test. We might have said it meets the three-part test, but the commission, being the final decision maker, could have disagreed with whatever recommendations we had at the time. Usually when there's a pool that's denied, there's usually some impact also to properties that are in the neighborhood. So there probably would have been some feedback from the people saying, I really don't want the pool close to the lake. I don't want the pool in this location because it removes some natural vegetation. Those would be typical comments that you would see if someone was not happy with the proposed variance.
Okay. My last question is in your staff report under alternatives. Number 2, you put relocate the pool to the side yard on the west side of the house. Has any more discussion been about that? And if you were to do that, that would pretty much negate anything that you need to do here tonight.
There's going to be one additional challenge.
Okay.
With that, because they do have, they're adjacent to Duck Lake Road.
Okay.
So you're going to have the 30-foot setback. So to get
there would still be a variance for that too.
There would still be a variance.
So you're not you're not in the clear over there as well.
Right.
Understood. Okay. That answers my questions. Thank you. Commissioners, anything else? Oh, Travis, you have a question? Thanks. Go ahead.
Yeah, does anyone know what the setback for the pool on the end of the cul-de-sac of Lillian Lane? From the area, it looks like that might be the nearest backyard pool.
The pool that was identified in the staff report, we checked the survey and the permit for the pool. And their high water mark is just in a different location on their particular lot based upon the shape of the lot. And theirs is actually parallel to the rear lot line, whereas this one's at a diagonal. Mm-hmm.
Seeing that this is an open meeting, is there anybody else that has any questions or concerns about this project? If no, now would be the time to come forward. Yes, sir. Please come forward, state your name, spell your last name for city record, and give us your comment or concern. Thank you.
My name is Bruce Russo, R-U-S-S-O. My lot is directly adjacent to Jared's and Jacqueline's, so mine would be the most affected. I think you can see from perhaps the photos that there's a lot of vegetation along the road, along the lake, and because of the topography of the cul-de-sac and everything, I'm actually probably the only one who would ever see this improvement. And I have no objections to it. From what I understand, it looks reasonable to me. So
Great.
Just wanted to be on record for that.
I appreciate it. Thanks for coming down. Is there anybody else that has any comments? Commissioners?
This is definitely a unique circumstance.
It
falls within reason, so
okay.
I'm all for it.
All right, I'm getting some nods from this end as well. Okay, so with that, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Mr. Chairman, move to recommend approval of final order 2012-03.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Great, congratulations. You can move forward with the project. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, before we move on, a side note, not related to this, but related to my comment.
Mm-hmm.
If staff has sometime in the next year, I mean, it's not a super heavy-duty item, but just see what other municipalities around the area have come in conformance with the DNR, and which ones are more strict or less strict or whatever. Or if you know that already.
The last thing I remember, we had a discussion item where Lori came and made a presentation about a change in the DNR rule related to non-conforming lots. And that was something that went on the statute about 3 years ago, about the change in the setback. I'd have to take a look into that because I haven't received any information from the DNR that there was a change in that, but I'd be happy to look into that. And it's an easy enough search to go into Minnesota statutes into their database, and I'd be happy to report back for the next meeting.
Yeah, thank you.
It's nice to know I have another 11 months in case I don't.
All right, thank you. Thank you again. All right, moving on. The next...
Good luck with your project.
Yes, thank you. The next item for tonight is Dos Meninas Daycare Facility. The location of the project is 7735 Mitchell Road. The request is a planned unit development concept review on 0.98 acres, a planned unit development district review with waivers on 0.98 acres, a zoning district amendment within the community commercial zoning district on 0.98 acres, and a site plan review on 0.98 acres. With that being said, will the proponent of the project please come forward, state your name, spell your last name for city record, and tell us a little bit about your project, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. My name is Quinn Hudson. Last name is Hutson, and I'm principal at C&H Architects, and I'm here to represent Dos Meninas tonight and kind of walk you through the project.
Mr. Hudson, if you could speak right into that microphone, that would help us out greatly. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Well, I'd like to introduce you a little bit to the Dos Meninas project. It's at 7735 Mitchell Road, which is right next to Buca, Cochrane Lane, and, of course, the ramp from Highway 212. Dos Meninas is owned by a group that has founded and owns 3 other daycares within the Twin City area. They've been a very successful, award-winning Spanish immersion daycare and preschool organization, and are really looking forward to being in Eden Prairie. In fact, they were planning on being here and just greeting you tonight, but an emergency came up, so I'm passing on their greetings from that. So. The project, again, is located next to Buca, Cochrane Lane, and off of 212 Highway 5 is shown in this slide. It's about just slightly under 1 acre site. Looking closer at the property itself, to the left there we have 19 parking stalls. It's an 8,500 square foot building. Proposed in the redder color with the playground area off to the east side of the site. As you can see, we've provided significant landscaping around the building, screening both the parking lot and some of the back areas from view, but also allowing the building to be seen through the vegetation as well. We've connected the building to the existing sidewalk systems along Cochrane Lane and provided for that pedestrian access as well. Close-up of the site plan and the floor plan showing, as you would expect in the facility, multiple classrooms from infant up to preschool, and then the supporting spaces, office, gym, kitchen, staff areas. This particular site plan includes the proof of parking layout. Obviously, this is not a part of what the current intent, but as required by ordinance, we're showing what could happen on the site if the building was used for a different purpose. The exterior southwest image of the building. This, as you can see, the building has a stone base and some stone elements coming up next to the entry. The vast majority of the rest of the building is brick. That's the one-story orange, lighter orange tan brick color there. And then we have a focal point of an entry atrium that extends up and adds some color and some life that's kind of playful and reminiscent of daycare and kind of speaking to that use. And that, which is open on the inside and also was going to create a nice, interesting color as the light comes through the colored glass in the facility. We've also included a few images from different points around the site just to give you some idea of just what it's looking like from a distance. This is from the beginning of the ramp coming off of 212. This is from Cochrane Lane, looking at the front entry. So that was a quick walkthrough, and I'd be happy to answer questions now or later, anything you'd like to know.
We're going to go to staff report, and if we have any follow-up questions, we'll let you know.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Mr. Franz, you want to take us through the staff report, please?
Mr. Chairman, the staff recommends approval according to the recommendations on page 3 of the staff report.
Nice and easy, huh?
We like them easy.
Very good. Commissioners, are there any questions that you may have?
I had a couple.
Yes, ma'am.
I was just curious for the project proponent, have you had any conversations with BUCA? I know they would have been informed of the projects, but I was curious if you've had any conversations with them.
Let's see if anyone else has. Can you speak to that? Okay. The real estate broker representing the owner.
Can you please state your name and spell your last name for city? This is fine. City record, that'd be great.
I'm John McCarthy, MCCARTHY. I work with Cushman Wakefield and represented the family in locating a site to build. We have had a conversation with BUCA because right now the parking lot that's behind the building is owned by the current property owner where the daycare is going, and they do a lease over weekends and evenings, and it would be the intention of the daycare as well because it works very well. They don't need the parking in the evenings or weekends, and so the idea is to try to work out an arrangement similar. So we did tell them who it was. They were thrilled about it, and after approvals and things like that, we're going to sit down with them and work out a longer-term arrangement.
Very good.
Okay.
Any other questions? Any other concerns? Seeing that this is open discussion, is there anyone out in the audience that has any comments or concerns? Not seeing any.
Can I ask one more?
Yes, ma'am.
I was wondering if you wouldn't mind going back to your slideshow. If you could go back to, I think it was the plan view of the parking lot, or kind of a plan view of the whole site. So there.
This one here?
Well, one before that.
Okay, with the proof of parking shown, yes.
Yeah. So I guess I had a question more for city staff. Am I saying correctly that there's just one entrance to the property? I'm curious if there's any concerns over meeting code for, in case there's a fire or something, for them to get to the back of the building, or would they just enter from the front?
They would enter from Cochrane Lane, or they could enter from the highway, and the building size and its use would require that it be sprinklered as well.
Okay.
You're talking about physical openings, though, right?
Yes, because there's only the one entrance.
Right.
I was just wondering if there's any concern about them being able to efficiently be able to get to all sides of the building. I understand that, I can see the property line there, and, it's probably a different property, just, I think, is it to the north there, where if they had to do a secondary entrance?
We didn't have any comments from fire that suggested that we need to do something different with this.
They didn't want any kind of additional kind of geo-texturing or anything to make that back area so they could drive on it, even if it's not a road?
No.
Okay. That's all I had.
Good question.
Katie, I got a comment on that. Most likely the large apparatus are not going to be going inside the area because of logistics. They're going to be able to stay on the Cochrane Lane, and the amount of fire hose that is available on the entrances well supersedes the so there would be no concern, or very little.
Anything else? I will tell you on a personal note, I had my, Eden Prairie had Spanish immersion, and one of my sons just graduated from 6th grade from Spanish immersion. I've got a 1st grader in Spanish immersion, so I think it's pretty good timing. And I know the community, there's a lot of interest in the community for Spanish immersion, and they have lotteries to get kids in and everything else, so it's a good thing, I think, for the city. Okay. With that being said, I don't see any other concerns. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, move to close the public hearing.
Second?
A motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Mr. Chairman, move to recommend approval of the planned unit development concept review on 0.98 acres, planned unit development district review with waivers on 0.98 acres, zoning district amendment within the community commercial zoning district on 0.98 acres, and site plan review on 0.98 acres based on plan stamp dated July 16th, 2012, and the staff report dated July 20th, 2012.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Congratulations. You can move forward with the project. Thank you very much. Moving right along, Mr. Franzen, planners reports.
Yes, we have an interesting meeting coming up on August 13th. We are going to have representatives from the Metropolitan Airports Commission to talk to us about a change in our comprehensive plan, which identifies an airport office and an airport commercial as implementation tools for the airport to look at 6 parcels that are non-aeronautical parcels for future development. And along with that, we're considering an amendment to the city code, which creates the airport commercial district, the airport office district. All this is tied back to a memorandum of understanding between the city and the MAC, which was created in 2010, which outlined a review process for MAC and the city to go through before they would be able to actually build something on the property. And this is the first part. You have to amend your comp plan, amend the code, create the districts. And that'll take 120 days. After that, then MAC and the city go through a process to consider the rezoning of each of those parcels. That takes 120 days. And subsequent to that, when and if they have someone who wants to build something on the property, then you would go through a site plan review. And that's going to be a little bit more dependent on when the market wants to do it. We don't think that we're going to see applications for all properties at the same time, just like we don't see applications for all properties that are vacant in the city at this point.
Do you anticipate a lot of community feedback?
We are sending out notices to owners within 1,000 feet of the airport.
And what is normal?
500 feet.
Okay, so you're putting out a wider net.
This was a request from our city council.
And I think that is a great request. So I was going to say the same thing. So
what
okay.
we're also going to do with the public notice is that we're going to have a little sort of a casual description about the process and a map that shows the parcels in addition to the notice. So it gives them an idea of the time frame and what steps are going to be followed. We also want to tie it to a website, so if they want more information about the MOU or the ordinance, they can just type this in, look it up. So they'll have a little bit better background information, maybe better prepared, better educated before they come to the meeting. And we think maybe that'll head off a few of the questions. Or maybe some of the people that are farther away that aren't as impacted. We probably still have questions from people that are relatively close nearby.
Okay.
Second item, we're going to have a garage variance. Should be minor and relatively easy. We have the continued item, which is the woods at Bryant Lake.
What was the continued item, sir?
The first item on the agenda was continued to August 13th.
Oh, okay, right. Okay.
So we have our fingers crossed we'll actually have something. But I think it's getting to the point now, it's been continued so often, we may suggest that they withdraw the project. We hate to keep sending out notices to the residents. It's being continued. I think they'd like to know it's ready to go so we can come down and comment on it if we have comments. And the last thing is we're going to revisit Metro Crossing's revised plan. The council direct that back to the city council, back to the planning commission for review. What we will do with the staff report is structure a conclusion section with a list of questions so that we can provide the council with feedback about particular items like density, building height, setbacks, parking, transit-oriented development. So they have the best of the information you can possibly provide them on your view of what this current plan is. It's 192 units, so it's 7 more than the plan that you saw at the Planning Commission. And there's some differences in the amount of parking that they will provide on the project. And there's a little bit of difference in our approach to how much parking we think we actually need now that we've been doing some additional research into how much parking does a studio really need in comparison to 1 and 2 bedrooms. So we think our parking number might come down and their parking number might come up. But it's the most important question is how do you provide that parking and when do you provide it?
Does that last item need to happen at the next meeting?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So we should plan to hunker down is what I'm hearing.
Yes, it'll be one of the longer meetings we're probably going to have.
Okay.
I'm thinking that the airport one may take the longest. Rick Rosso, our city attorney, will be here because he kind of brokered the whole MOU.
Yes.
And we're going to have the PowerPoint presentation that we made to the city council, which says, here's the history of how we got here. This is the first critical step. Here are the next steps. And then we'll open up it for audience participation after that.
When was the last time the city council heard this?
We had this at a workshop probably, I'm thinking in May,
Okay.
where we said we thought the process was going to start in June, but actually it's starting a little bit later. So they're aware of this, that this is on the horizon.
Would it be beneficial for the commissioners to see that PowerPoint up front? Meaning, could you send it to us? Would that be appropriate?
Actually, we can.
Okay.
I can send that tomorrow.
Okay. Commissioners, would that be a good idea?
Yeah.
Okay.
I had a question. Would it be, does the city ever consider a kind notion of having the garage person go first so they could head home if they want to?
Yes.
Okay.
We would take that one first, like we did tonight. If it's a continued item, they would go second. You've already looked at Mitchell Crossing, some of you, that would go last. We do the MAC thing because we figure that's where the volume is going to be, if there's going to be any. And we don't want to have a lot of people having to wait until 10 o'clock at night just to have an opportunity to talk. I don't know if we'll reach a conclusion at that first meeting in August. You may decide that you want more time to think about it. We'll just have to see how things go and what the critical questions are that need to be answered, and hopefully we'll have good, sound answers for you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Just one quick question relative to that. When you're looking at how you define the MAC property, does that include the land that they own clear to the west of Eden Prairie Road, and that's where you start the 1,000-foot dimension is from the far end of...
It's the legal boundaries of everything that they own. So it's beyond the runways, it's got the safety zones in there, the hangar areas.
Okay.
It's even across the street.
It's half the city.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really big area by going clear. And so it's looking at their approach to zoning for the land that's over towards Sky Lane even, between Eden Prairie Road and Sky Lane.
I can tell you that they've dropped that site. Originally, they had 8. They had one parcel on the west side towards Sky Lane. They're not going to do that. The thinking is that they don't think that's right for office or commercial, and it could be residential, but they haven't made that formal statement yet. There was another office site, which was on Charleston Road on the slope. They've realized that's too steep. So those are 2 of the 8 that have dropped off.
Okay. Thank you.
That'll be interesting. Okay. Any other?
I would just need
Projects?
the chair's signature on the final order before you leave.
I will do that. Any members' reports for tonight? Any continuing business? Well, I guess we've got a members' report I see here about the light rail.
Yeah, there's really nothing to report there. That's the meeting was canceled for July.
Okay,
so.
very good.
It's
Continuing
going to be a
business.
placeholder on all of our agendas, so if there's a meeting and something in the report,
Got it. Very good. Any continuing business? Any new business? If not, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Mr. Chairman, move to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting is closed. Thank you very much.
so what happened?